What's one of the big things that we're hearing in the news and all the talk? What's all the talk about? And there was a talk right with people when they came in this morning. What?
Flu epidemic.
Flu epidemic, yeah, flu epidemic. How to stay healthy, and did you get your flu shot? And everybody is really sick with the flu. So, and this happens every year, but supposedly this year is very bad flu going on this year. So, and everybody's thinking, gee, I hope I don't get exposed to the flu, right? So how do we get exposed to the flu? How do we get exposed to any disease or any illness? How do we get exposed? What's that? Hang around with sick people? Yeah, okay, hang around with sick people. And we'll talk about that, hanging around with sick people. How else?
Allow it or take it in or whatever.
You allow it, you take it in, okay, Unity.
Your immune system drops.
Your immune system's dropped, so you can get it if your immune system's low. Not washing your hands, allowing all those flu germs to come in, right? That's what that's the physical reality, right? That's the physical reality. Now, let's think metaphysically. Let's think how Unity thinks. Let's think what is the truth. Okay? What's the truth about that? We have all been exposed to the flu. Okay? Well, once we hear about it, and once we take it in, and once we say, gee, I could get that, I don't want to get that, how can I prevent myself from getting that? And once we have a little anxiety or a little fear about that, now it's in our consciousness. And guess what? We've been exposed. It doesn't matter if there's any germs there or not. We've been exposed to the flu. And that's the truth. So we've all been exposed to the flu. So what are we going to do with it? Now, life is consciousness. It's all a matter of consciousness. Do you have something you want to say, Joy?
Don't allow ourselves to be in a weakened mental state.
Don't allow us to be in a weakened mental state. It's interesting. We don't even realize how natural healing is to our body. We think that we have to defend. You know, we have to defend ourselves. We have to prevent. We have to do all this stuff. And we don't even realize the healing capability of our body. Now, back in 1913, there was a doctor named Dr. Richard Cabot. And he actually was into science of the mind. But in 1892, he received an MD degree from Harvard Medical School. Following a year internship, he earned a Dalton Fellowship for Leukemia Research in Massachusetts General Hospital. And then he became director or dean of Harvard, something at Harvard. But anyway, he did a lot of talks and everything on diagnosis of disease. Like he would do seminars on people, doctors diagnosing disease, what they use to diagnose disease and everything. And then on autopsy, they would see if their diagnosis was correct. And it was interesting because a lot of times their diagnosis wasn't correct. So that's why they say doctors practice medicine, because they still haven't gotten it right. But anyways, it's very interesting. The things that he wrote in the early 1900s, in 1913 or 1912, he did a talk at the American Society of Medicine, and he also wrote a paper, and he wrote, in my medical work, I have had the chance to examine dead bodies of persons who had died in spite of the best that they could do. Nothing sounds more morbid or more discouraging than the job of examining dead bodies. There you see the failure of nature's healing, the defeat of the human body in its struggle against disease. Yet, the study of these bodies has been one of the most inspiring experiences that has ever come. For we see that at autopsy, not merely the defeat that has resulted in death, but the whole history of that which the body has conquered diseases years ago, without even letting the brain know that the disease was going on. he talks a lot about he said, talks about a case that really hit him. And it was a case of an elderly man, 64 years of age. Well, he called that elderly. I don't call that elderly. Anyways, a man, 60, let's just say a man, 64 years of age, with ruddy, fresh complexion and white hair, stooped off the corner of a street without looking where he was going. He was struck by an automobile and fatally injured. So he died of a car accident. He was brought to the Massachusetts General Hospital and died within an hour. His wife came soon after, and whom we asked her about him, she declared he had never been sick a day in his life. So he was a very healthy guy. He was a bartender, a local politician, the most active person both in mind and body. I was present at the autopsy on his body, and this is what I found. Healed tuberculosis of both lungs. Cirrhosis of the liver with all the blood going around by a set of roads and below his liver. So his liver actually reconstructed the blood flow. Chronic kidney trouble, but now set of roads above and chronic kidney trouble, but with enough reserved kidney tissue to carry on the kidney function perfectly, despite the destruction of large portion of one and a small portion of the next, hardening of the arteries, and a compensatory enlargement of his heart. No doubt that he had high blood pressure for a long time. All this he never knew. In other words, here was a perfectly well man with 4 fatal diseases inside of him, none of which had done him any harm. Wow. Now that's interesting, and he goes on in he wrote a whole article, and he wrote the whole article about how our body is designed to heal itself. And he says in this article, we say it's nature, but what is nature? It's God. And he said, he said to a whole society of physicians, is why do we continue not to mention God to our patients? Why do we continue not to mention the natural healing in our bodies? Why do we focus on disease instead of the health that we are? And that's unity. That's unity, and that's metaphysical, and that's the truth, is we focus on disease and not on health. Deepak Chopra talks about that, and he talks about a person that he knew that he was changing, I don't know, he was maybe in his 40s or something like that, and he was changing medical insurance. And you know, for medical insurance, you have to go for a physical, you have to have all these tests done before you get to new medical insurance. So he went and he had a chest x-ray, and it showed a spot in his lung. So he went for a CAT scan, the spot in the lung was there, they did a biopsy, it was cancer. And, you know, he knew that he was cancer. He went through all the treatment and everything, and he died in like 6 months to a year. And as they were cleaning out his desk and his stuff, they found an old chest x-ray of his, and the spot was there. The spot was there when he was 20 years old. Now, 20 years later, they see the spot, they label it, they diagnose it, and it kills him. Because his body had done things that did not grow. It didn't give him any symptoms. He didn't know about it. It was taken care of. God was, you know, basically his natural healing was taking care of it. But he didn't know. His consciousness was not in an illness. It was in health. And that's when we get, and there's mass consciousness too. So I mean, we have to deal with our own consciousness. However, we're also dealing with mass consciousness. We're hearing it from everybody. So it takes us it takes us a lot of prayer conditioning to keep our consciousness in the consciousness of health. But that's where we need to be, and that's how we stay healthy, is just to keep our consciousness in the state of health. Think about, there is such a thing that's called medical student's disease, or it's called hypochondrosis of medical students, or medical student syndrome, or medical student disorder. And it's actually a condition frequently reported in medical students who perceive themselves or others to be experiencing the symptoms of the disease they are studying. It actually has a name. It happens enough that it has a name. And why is that? Because they're studying the disease, they're focusing on the disease, they're afraid of the disease, they become the disease. They get the disease, they see the disease in other people. And that's why they say doctors and nurses, they die if they work on a floor, or in a certain field a long enough time, they end up dying of that disease. And it's because their consciousness is so filled with that disease. That's horrible. I don't want that. I don't want to see that. Look at them suffer. So we're filled with that. So what are we filling our minds with? And it takes conditioning. It takes conditioning. It's like Charles Fillmore's little story of the two boys who they were going to jump down into the haystack, and the first boy said, "Oh, come on, this is going to be fun. We're going to jump in the haystack." So first boy jumped, and he said, "Oh, this is great. This is great." Second boy looks down and goes, "Oh my God, that looks really that's scary. I don't know. Maybe I ought to say a prayer first before I go." So he said a prayer and he jumped and he broke both of his legs. And so the first boy came in to visit him, and the second boy said, "Why did I get hurt? I prayed right before I jumped." And the first boy said, "Well, I guess I was prayed up." and that's the truth, is we need to be prayed up. We need to be spiritually conditioned. And it's not that we wouldn't, if we were in a good spiritual place, we wouldn't need the flu vaccine. We wouldn't need to do anything, because our consciousness wouldn't allow disease into our body. However, many of us are not there. I get sick. I don't get sick that as much as I used to, but every once in a while I do. But I know when I do get sick, I can see what happened before. And it's always, I'm under stress, I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm something else that has lowered our immune system, allowed that disease in, because our body listens to our thoughts. And we set it up. We set our illness up. What is disease? Dis-ease. Right? We're not at ease, and we allow our bodies to be sick. And that's, and that's basically all what it is. So, Eric Butterworth talks a lot about spiritual healing and healing. And he said, what do? We fight disease. We say we fight disease. What happens when we fight something? Huh? We resist. We resist. Yeah, and what we resist persists. Right. So when we get sick, we battle the disease, we battle our symptoms and everything, instead of allowing the healing, allowing our body to do the natural thing, and that's heal itself. Sickness, he says, sickness and health are not two opposing forces. They're not two opposing forces like we think. We can't prevent illness, but we can maintain health. And it goes into medication, thinking about medication. And it was interesting because Richard Cabot at that time, again, talked about placebo. Now, we get medications that help our symptoms. What happens if we don't think a medication's really going to work? Doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. So most medications depend on our belief in the medication. And first of all, that's okay. That's okay. I'm not saying you shouldn't medicate, you shouldn't go to doctors or anything. And even A Course in Miracles says we shouldn't need doctors or medications or anything, but we're at a place yet in our spiritual evolution that that's a crutch. If that's going to give us a belief that we're better, then do it. Anything that's going to give us a belief that we're better, do it. Hey, do it. But Cabot wrote about Doctors, he says, really all medication is placebo. He knew it at that time in 1912. He said all medication is placebo because it depends on the person's belief in the medication. And he said, but people, even people there, and this is what he wrote, the majority of placebos are given because we believe that the patient will not be satisfied without them. And then he says, he has learned to expect medicine for every symptom, and without it, he simply won't get well. True, but who has taught him to expect medicine for every symptom? It's the mass consciousness. We're in a quick, a quick fix society. We're in, a pill. Take a pill for this. We go to a doctor and we're expecting a pill for whatever ails us. And we have that in our mass consciousness. So, we're expecting a pill. We're expecting a pill. And the thing is, if we expect a pill and expect that pill to help us, they can give us a placebo that wouldn't have any other side effects, and we'd be well, if we have enough faith in that medication. So he says, who has taught him to expect a medicine for every symptom? He was not born with that expectation. He learned it from an ignorant doctor who really believed it. It is we physicians who are responsible for perpetuating false ideas about disease and its cure. And with every placebo that we give, we do our part in perpetuating error, the harmful error at that. Error, and what do we say error is? Wrong thinking. It's wrong thinking. It's thinking that we get, and think about it. When we grew up, don't get your feet wet because that'll get you cold. You get a cold with wet feet, right? You go out in the cold, and my mom used to say this because I wash my hair on a daily basis, and I go out with a wet head. You go in with a wet head, you're going to get a cold. All of these things that we were said were going to give us a cold. And really that was just beliefs. But if we believed it, guess what? We got it. We got it. There's so many things in hospitals, and I worked as a nurse for years, and I saw people dying of cancers that they wouldn't have to die from. But the word cancer was so scary to them that they died. And they might not have died of their cancer. They might have died of a secondary infection or something like that. But really, it was the belief that they weren't going to make it through. It's always that belief. And, we know that. We know that. And in Unity, we know that. And we actually know that that's the truth. But it's taking it from here and getting it to here. And really, really internalizing it. And really knowing it, really living it, and getting it deep into our consciousness. Because we have been conditioned, to believe this, to believe that. We have our own beliefs, and a lot of times they take over without us knowing. We have a subconscious mind that has all those things in there. So how do we change that? How do we change that? Meditation.
Think positive.
Think positive. Prayer conditioning. Prayer conditioning. And Stephen's going to do the message next week, and after that I'm going to do probably 3 weeks on prayer conditioning. Because it's a matter of conditioning, reconditioning. Basically we're reconditioning those beliefs. We're getting rid of the beliefs that no longer serve us, the beliefs that we know aren't true, and incorporate the beliefs that we know are true. The beliefs in our body, and that God works in our body to keep us healthy. That we don't have to struggle and fight against disease. We have a natural, our body is 10 times more for health than it is for disease. And we have all these things set up. And Cabot talks time after time after time about things that he found in autopsy of diseases that people had. And they were encapsulated, they were rerouted, they did whatever to heal themselves without even knowing they had the disease. And I'm sure that's because they had a consciousness of health. They didn't even, that disease was there. And it's, they say in a lot of the Oriental countries, I think it's like China, they are very healthy people. They don't go for yearly exams. yearly physicals. Because our bodies change all the time. And just like Cabot said, on autopsy, they found so many different things in people's bodies. At one time, you go there, just like that guy that had the lump in his lung for 20 years. And then when they found it and labeled it cancer, he died from it. We might have stuff at that time that our body is taking care of. But all of a sudden, if we find it, we get scared, we put our focus on it, we treat it, it's a disease, it's going to kill us, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, and it becomes our story, it becomes our life, and I'm just putting that out there. I don't know, is it good to have a physical exam? Is it not good to have a physical exam? It just depends. Talking about the flu vaccine, is it good to get the flu vaccine? Isn't it good to get the flu vaccine? It's all a matter of consciousness. If you get a flu vaccine and that eases your dis-ease about the flu, great. Then we all need to get flu vaccines, and that's okay. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Right now, they have a panic in where I work about the epidemic. They don't want it to come because it's close quarters. We had a couple of cases already in isolation. So they said, okay, every employee now has to get the flu vaccine, or there might be a point that you can't come to work, you have to wear a mask and stuff like that. So it's a matter of, okay, and I never used to get the flu vaccine. I only got it one other time when I worked at the hospital, and it was quarantined, and I needed to get the flu vaccine. So I just get my consciousness to, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter one way or the other if I do or I don't. I'm not going to be harmed from the vaccine. I'm not going to be harmed from not getting the vaccine. If I need to get the vaccine, I'll just go ahead and do it. And I did, and that's what I did. So, it's not a matter of, I don't believe in the thing, fear the fear and do it anyways. Or feel the fear and do it anyways. I think we need to feel the fear and know that there's something wrong in our consciousness, and then work on that. And once we have dissipated the fear, or saw if that fear was real or not, then we can do it. Just like the kid jumping off the he wasn't there. He wasn't there even though he said a quick prayer. He wasn't there. And he jumped and he got hurt. So it's a matter of conditioning. It doesn't happen overnight, but that's what we're here to do, is to do a daily routine, something that we need to do. Crystal and I were talking on the way here about changing our habits and what we need to do on a daily basis. And I said, that's why a 12-step program, they'll say in the beginning, 90 meetings in 90 days, because it takes that long to change behaviors, to change thinking, to change habits. We can't say a prayer, okay, I'm healthy, I'm well, and deny disease because, we know that it's there and everything, but it's a matter of prayer conditioning. Of doing on a daily basis, knowing who we are, doing something to raise ourselves up spiritually. Charles Fillmore, part of what Nancy read there. Well, first of all, let me read a story of the carpenter. An elderly carpenter was ready to retire. He told his employer contract of his plans to leave the house building business and live a more leisurely life with his wife, enjoying his extended family. He would miss his paycheck, but he needed to retire and he could get by. The contractor was sorry to see his good worker go and asked if he could build just one more house as a personal favor. The carpenter said yes, but in time it was easy to see that his heart was not in his work. He resorted to shoddy workmanship and used inferior materials. It was an unfortunate way to end his career. When the carpenter finished his work and the builder came to inspect the house, the contractor handed him the front door key to the carpenter. "This is your house," he said, "a gift for me. A gift to you from me." What a shock. What a shame. If he had only known he was building his own house, he would have done it oh so differently. Now he had to live in the home that he built none too well. So it is with us. We build our bodies, we build our lives in a distracted way, reaching rather than acting, willing to put up with less than the best. Important parts, we do not give the job our best effort. And when I think about this, building our bodies, we don't focus on health. We don't take time to do what's really important in our lives. We see things missing in our lives, and all we would have to do is build up our consciousness. But we don't have time to do that because we're so busy fighting against everything else. But that's what we need to do, because we're building our house. We're building our own lives. You know, we get the keys and we're living in it. So it's a matter of what are we doing? What are we doing to build our own house? What are we doing to build our bodies? Charles Fillmore wrote, "The Disease Antidote. Cease making disease germs." And by disease germs, he's talking about our thoughts. Cease making diseased thoughts. Thoughts of dis-ease, thoughts of anger, thoughts that disease is real, thoughts that I can get it, thoughts of resentment. Turn your attention to higher things. Make love alike by thinking love. Make love alive by thinking love. Make wisdom the light of the world by affirming God's omnipresent intelligence. See in mind the pure substance of God, and it will surely appear. This is the way to destroy disease. This is the antidote for disease germs. The real, the enduring things of God are to be brought into visibility in just this simple way. This is the way in which the I Am makes itself manifest. The method is so easy that the man of great intellect passes it by. It is so plain that a simpleton can understand it. One does not have to know about anything whatsoever except God. How easy is it? How light the burden. No long, tedious years of study, no delving into depths of intricate theories and speculations are necessary. All that is required is a simple, childlike attention directed to the ever-present, everywhere present Spirit, and a heart filled with love and goodness for everything. The biggest antidote for disease is not to resist it, but to replace it with thoughts of love, thoughts of gratitude, thoughts of wonderness, thoughts of health. Realizing the truth. As we realize God thoughts, we'll realize that that disease isn't even in our consciousness. You know, and in that respect, we're immune. So I could go on and on, but my time is my time is done. But you know, I do encourage you to come listen to Stephen next week. The next week we're going to talk about prayer consciousness, because it's developing prayer consciousness, getting prayed up, so that when stuff comes up, we don't have to go to the doctor. Because when we're into a physical disease, it's kind of too late to get prayered up then. You know, we already got it. Let's face it, we got it, we're into it, now let's do that. And not that we shouldn't do the spiritual, but we need to do the physical to ease our minds. Because once our minds are eased, then we can work on the physical. I mean, on the spiritual. So I'm not saying don't go to doctors, don't do anything, because we need that. Especially when we're into something, we need that. But take it for what it is. It's easing our mind so that we can allow our body to heal naturally. And that's what God's about. Any comments?
I really like the phrase from the Charles Fillmore reading today. It says, God's wisdom is imprinted in our soul. So it really struck me because I thought, His wisdom is within us. So the healing wisdom is within us.
In every cell of our body. In every cell, in every organ. And that's why the organ works to repair itself. And I think those cases, just like he said, when I do an autopsy, there are cases where the body didn't help itself. But I think that's because we didn't allow it to. We stayed in that stress. We stayed in that part of disease. We incorporated that disease, whatever. We took ownership of it. And in those cases, the body didn't allow it to heal. So those cases, it did.
I work in the health industry, so I see health histories all day long. And I can tell you that as soon as I see a health history and they have almost everything checked off and they have 57 medications that they're taking, I know that not only are they physically ill, but they're mentally ill. Not mentally ill, but I mean mentally they're struggling with something. because as we go along with different years, things come out, all the tragedies, all the things that have happened to them. So I can see where it's put them in this physical state.
Yep.
That's also affecting physicality, but also the mental. And they're crutching all these medications so hard to turn
Yeah.
that around. I feel like, oh, you know, this person's really struggling with sad souls. They're struggling physically, but also,
Yeah.
you know, emotionally and mentally as well.
And it's not a matter sometimes of you're focusing on, I'm focusing on heart disease, so I get heart disease. It's I'm focusing on not being loved. You know, I'm focusing on not enough love in the world, so I get heart disease. You know, it's not like we're focusing on that certain disease, but we're opening ourselves up to whatever it is. Or,
I think the body has a consciousness, and the consciousness is, wants to be well. If you cut your finger, you don't have to do anything.
yeah. And we know that. We know that. Why can't we believe that it does it for everything else? You know, we know that we can cause disease by stress and everything. Why would we think we can't cure ourselves too? You know, it's because we're conditioned to believe not. So I'd like to take these thoughts into meditation. And as you just get comfortable in your chair, feel the chair supporting your body. Feel the floor supporting your feet. Feel the energy of the universe. As you just hear the music and hear the water flow, feel that sense of well-being. I invite you to enter into the core of your being, into the body's wisdom, the wisdom of God, the wisdom of nature. Take time to give gratitude for your body just the way it is. Express love to your body just the way it is. Give thanks for its healing ability. Acknowledge the truth and the healing consciousness and wisdom that it already has. Acknowledge gratefulness for healing of anything in the past, whether you know about it or whether you don't. And affirm, I accept the health and well-being that I am heir to. Focus on those God thoughts of love, of acceptance, of kindness, of well-being. Let go of any resistance that you're holding on to allow the natural healing of your body do its job. As we relax and let go, we acknowledge God's healing presence, restoring every cell, every organ. Affirm, disease has no power over me. For I am in constant contact with the power of God, working marvelous and wonderful miracles in my body. Feel that renewing health flow through your bloodstream, through every cell of your body. Knowing you are well, you are healthy, you are energized, and you are healed. As we have this sense of well-being and this understanding of our natural healing capacity, an enlightened consciousness, I invite you to come back into this room affirming, I am healed, I am healthy, I am whole. And so it is. Amen. Okay, our music is in your bulletin. It's an insert, the healing song.